Well, for more on the German court issuing a warrant for Markus Jooste, we're now joined via Zoom by economist and accountant Khaya Sithole. Khaya, a good morning to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I mean, this has been a long time coming. Do you think that there's more that we'll be seeing Markus Jooste accounting for?
Good morning to the viewers. So I think obviously what has really transpired over the past 5.5 is that the German authorities have been able to get a much stronger foothold on pursuing the charges against Markus Jooste. They have initiated processes that have enabled them to put together what they argue is indictment into the German courts. And what has happened since then is that the indictment hasn't been tabled in the courts, and then he has been expected to come and present his case. What Markus has been arguing since then is that, unfortunately, he has another entanglement with the South African authorities in the sense that he doesn't believe that he should travel. At least that's the argument that he's putting forward. So because he's unable to travel out of South Africa because his passport has, as he alleges, been quarantined in one way or another, then he cannot show up in the German courts. And of course, the Germans have then had to move to issue a warrant of arrest to say, well, we need you to come and answer these charges. And in the absence of your ability to come here, we're going to have to find a different way of doing it. So that's what the process has been so far.
Yeah, so then, I mean, what happens next then, even particularly for German prosecutors themselves? I mean, for them to be able to get him to appear in court, are we talking now a process of extradition that's necessary?
Well, I think what the German authorities will seek to do first is to find out whether it is possible for Markus Jooste to still voluntarily make his way to Germany. If he then argues that the South African authorities are preventing him from doing that, then he has engaged across the authorities to say, well, we believe this man has a case to answer in this country. Can you guys lift whatever moratorium exists on his travel? If, of course, such a moratorium exists in the first place. If that's not the case and the German authorities do not get much joy from those processes, then they're going to have to elevate it. And we may even start talking about matters of extradition, but I don't think it's something that's going to happen overnight.
Yeah, and I'm keen to hear just your thoughts on the role that perhaps the South African authorities might have played here. And I'm talking about how fast even South African authorities could have moved in holding him accountable and having him face criminal charges here at home, because that is essentially the process or the reason why he's delaying his appearing before even German prosecutors.
So he's used as a basis for refusing to travel. So what we do know is that in South Africa, there's been different actions that have been undertaken. So the regulators like the Johannesburg Securities Exchange, which has banned him from practicing as a director. We've also had the enforcement action from the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. So those authorities have done some work. What has been missing is the link of the prosecutions agencies like the NPA, which are the ones that are obviously positioned to drive him in front of courts and then put together an indictment against them. So that inability of the NPA in particular to move forward with the case has created this accountability vacuum where people just simply feel that he's not being held accountable in spite of the enormous damage that was indeed caused to the capital markets and to the various investors that were exposed to start at that particular time. So we have to question the lethargy of the NPA in particular in putting together an indictment, because as you can imagine, the type of activities he undertook at Steinhoff that the Germans have said amount to a case that is at least worth presenting to the courts are the similar activities that would have affected the South African capital markets. So it's very unclear why the NPA in particular isn't able to put together even the draft of an indictment to say, look, this is what you think the case that you have to answer is going to be all about.
Yeah, ultimately, though, you've got viewers that are watching that perhaps are government employees, and they know that this was their pension funds that they're talking about that really were lost in this massive Steinhoff saga. What is the message really that South Africa is sending to South Africans when you talk about that, I suppose, that lag in the NPA being able to put a case together against Markus Jooste? The message to government employees?
Well, the message to government employees is the same message that all South African citizens actually have to listen to. Because remember, the government employee pension fund is remarkably unique in that it is a defined benefit fund, which simply means that those that are members of that fund get told up front that when you retire, this is how much you're going to get as a pension. The consequence of that is that if there is an investment loss, which is what happened in the case of Steinhoff, if there is an investment loss within that fund and that fund no longer has enough money to cover all of those pension liabilities, it is the taxpayer, it is you and I that actually have to step up and cover the shortfall. So the impact on Steinhoff went beyond just the of the GPF themselves. It affects every single taxpayer because we all somehow are, held liable for this one, in the sense that if there are shortfalls in the long run, we're going to have to top them up. And I think the problem here is that obviously for a lot of people that are sitting outside the system, trying to understand exactly how it can be that something so clearly fraudulent was perpetrated, and yet our law enforcement authorities do not seem to be moving, it is remarkably frustrating. And I think once we get Shamila Batohi to try and explain what has happened in the process and why that happened, the frustration is unfortunately going to persist.
Yeah, well, we'll be watching this one closely. Khaya, thank you so much for giving us your time. Economist and accountant Khaya Sithole is speaking to us there.